Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. So sorry, we just had technical difficulties on the back end, but we're here now, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Beyond Collaboration, Building a Thriving Culture in Your Medical Practice. With me today is Nicole Lamb. Nicole Lamb is a respected women's health provider with nearly 2 decades of experience. She's the founder of Better Health and Healing, a clinic known for blending allopathic, functional, and Ayurvedic medicine to serve women across all walks of life. She holds a master's degree in nursing and a certificate in nurse midwifery from the Frontier School of Nursing. And whether solving complex health mysteries or building workplace joy, Nicole's philosophy is rooted in turning science into simple, actionable tools for lasting well-being. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Nicole. And Nicole, please go ahead and kick things off.
Thank you, Jordan, for the warm welcome. It's so great to be with you all. I really wanted to kick us off with a story about how partnership can go very, very wrong. When I started in practice, it was my very first job, and I was employed by 6 physicians. The midwife practice was new to the clinic, and 3 of the physicians wished to have midwives work with them, and 3 did not. This wasn't known to us, but I think often, when there's discord, it's felt. Our midwife practice grew, and more midwives were hired, and still some of the physicians were not wanting to work with us collaborations. And what really occurred was this avoidant relationship between the midwives and the doctors. The physicians, they complained about the midwives to each other, to other nursing staffs, and the midwives complained to each other because we didn't trust anyone, as you can see. No trust, no partnership. The nursing staff at the hospital became so distressful with all the chaos. It caused the nurses to really fill out complaints with the hospital for all sorts of problems. Thus, it continued to fuel this fire of an adversarial relationship between an entire team, when our focus really should have been on patient care. And hard to say what patients noticed, but there was enough that they probably did notice. And the whole pattern lasted for almost 7 years. It was super poor for everyone involved. We avoided the physicians that we knew wouldn't agree with our plan of care. It was literally, I don't know if you ever see this in your practice, but ask your mom, ask your dad sort of situation. Luckily, I want you to pause for a moment and think about, if this was your team, how you would resolve it and how it could ever become a partnership, even after 7 years of things going really hard. What changes could possibly resolve all the distress and lack of communications? I'll let you know now that the physicians that I worked with then and I continue to work with now, I would all call friends. We collaborate in client care, and a large portion of the nursing staff now sees me as their provider. We are all leaders in our industry. It's why we've joined together to learn and evolve with EDGE. It's not enough to know, right? To know the dysfunction, to have theories about it. It's how to know how. It's to know how, and to bring your own vulnerability and discomfort of change to the situation in order to cause growth. Growth demands discomfort. While you're thinking about what you would do with this team of dysfunctional providers, right? Like physicians, midwives, managers, we're all pretty independent people and hard to probably contain, like herding cats. So what do you need partnership for? In other words, what are you committed to providing that you can't create on your own? I want you to take a moment and write that down. What is it that you're up to? So being totally so self-sufficient, right? You can only create so much. It's when we work in partnership that we can create so much more. I'm very, very pleased to be with you today. I attended births and cared for women for all of my career. Really recently enough, I was brave enough to branch out on my own. For all of you who own your own practice or have started a practice, you know how scary this can be. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions. I'm proud to say my company has more than tripled in profits in 3 years. And I currently employ, I always say we, because I feel like we're a team. But I currently employ five people. We're small, but we're mighty. We serve over 800 clients. You can't see my slides, and I'm a little sad about that. But I have this huge wall of a cliff next to me, and it was my most recent trip with my son. My son and I love to backpack, and somehow suffering has become a part of our adventures. I think it's we decided it was to make the memory stick and take hold. What's really struck me about our 4-day trip, as we were walking through this beautiful canyon, that really we saw maybe 2 people in 7 days, was the brush was hitting us in the face, the water was infected with cow poop, and our pumps didn't work. And on day 4, my son looks at me and he's like, "What are we doing this for?" Like, I don't know. I thought you wanted to do it. And he was like, "I thought you wanted to do it." So here we are halfway down the river, realizing that we had a total lack of communication, right? It was gorgeous for sure, but life gives us a lot to deal with, even when you're wanting to do it. And you can decide where you want to come from, right? Do you want to make the best of it? Like, we were totally laughing, walking through this awfulness, being slapped in the face, right? Life sometimes gives you that. And then you have to think about what energy you want to create your day with, right? I choose hard and happy, although fun would be easier, and easy could be fun. If you could see my next slide, I don't know if any of you know Dr. Joe Dispenza, but partnership is really an act of human spirit. By working together, we can create more than we can create by ourselves. I think of partnership as a joyful choice to create and connect. And in that, it's not always joyful, right? It takes positive resistance on each of the partners' parts in order to create a larger dream. I think you need to think of your employees as your partners in your dream. You need other providers, insurance companies, human resource personnel to make sure it all goes well. None of us went into medicine to do it all by ourselves, right? We wanted to take care of people and all the parts that we don't want to deal with, which became very, very evident of all the things that I needed to support me in my prior practice, and setting up my own became very clear. While these resources don't directly cause the flow of money, without them, your business and your ability to create in the world falls apart rapidly. These people are your people partners in creating the healthcare you desire for the people you serve. In Joe Dispenza's work, he really talks about where we place our energy is where we place our attention. I think of it as like when you were a kid riding a bike and your parents would holler out, you know, watch out for the tree or don't do this, right? And then as you're riding your bike, you run smack into the tree. The problem often becomes our focus. Your partnership or your employee with the problem becomes your focus. And we have so much more power when we shift our energy and can see things from a different perspective. Certainly not all partnerships were meant to work out. Not all employees will work out. I'm not really suggesting that, but what you bring your attention and energy to and trying to build the skills of others and work with others will come back to you in different ways that will help you to grow. So back to my partnership story. Our story is a story of space or too much space and a lack of connection. Others can't be heard if they're other or them. Let's face it, the midwives and physicians thought of each other at best as others and at worst as adversaries. We were definitely not partners. Our company went through three practice managers before a manager they brought in was bold enough to tell the practice owners that we're going to do a vote in front of each other. They always got to do their votes separately. These are all things, of course, I learned in later down the road. But he told them that we're going to determine whether we're going to keep the midwife practice or not. And your vote today is going to determine that. So if as a group you decide that you're keeping the midwives, you're going to choose to support them and work with them. And otherwise, we will no longer have them on our team. This adversarial relationship can no longer be. Right? It was causing discord between so many of us. I'm sure a lot of us were losing sleep. He also went on to tell them that, right, you can't speak poorly about your colleagues to other people when you're not addressing the problem with them. Luckily for me, the group decided to keep the midwives. And it got even more interesting from there, right? So we had our group problem, but then we had a perception problem with the nurses. And the hospital really decided that they needed to help the nursing staff, physicians, and family practice residents to all come onto the same page. I could tell you at the time, it was so frightening to me as an employee, having everybody look over my practice and determine if I was giving appropriate care. I mean, you hope that you are, right? I feel like I am, feel like I studied everything. But with all the contention, it was just this really hard time. Luckily, the family physicians and the residents pulled together and pulled all the research together. And indeed, in the collaboration of bringing the physicians, the pediatricians, the nurses together to present this information to the entire group, it provided understanding for us all. I would say in watching practices grow and watching our physician practice grow, our OBGYN clinic grow, a lot of times we're scared to ask questions of each other. And we're scared to have to present what we do and know, right? We all have little different ways of practicing. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's what we're used to. Sometimes you get in your bubble and don't know what other people are doing, and you can learn and grow, or you can choose not to grow, right? Maybe that's not going to be part of your practice. But for us, it was a really great thing. And it really burst our collaboration into more than we could have dreamt of. When I get back to space and connection, so at the time, our midwife practice was essentially shoved off into a corner. But it was a really big corner. Like the physicians had all the front part of the office, and then we had this little back corner that was big, but no one was in our area. So the other great thing that this managers did was he shifted us over into the area where the physician that we had the most contentious practice was. And so we were right in, I called it the lion's den at the time. And he's now a really super great friend. But at the time it was right, like this tension and how are we going to work through all this time? But it can work. The next part I want to talk to you about is great asking. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it, and then I'm going to bring you back to my story and talk about that some more. So great asking. When you think about your team, you want to provide clarity with what you're asking, consistently following up, which I'm going to spend a lot of time on. But that's following up with appropriate pressure and release of tension. acknowledging for what expectations were met, and appreciate when it all goes well are all portions of a great ask. So clarity. You must become clear as to the problem or act of creation that you're wishing to accomplish. Each of your partners, your employees, other healthcare managers, providers, insurance experts all have areas of expertise. In the beginning, if you can really think of it as a wider, larger view and look at areas that cross over and where they have expertise. And sometimes people who have expertise in one area are really good at something that you need within your company. So what are you wanting them to accomplish? And it really takes time as an organization to work that out. And if you're blessed enough, I would say what you're trying to create is going to grow, right? It's not usually just set in stone. As that, I don't know, I think that would get kind of old. On an individual level, right, for with your employees or somebody you're working with one-on-one, maybe it's looking at times and conditions of when you need deadlines met by, conditions of satisfaction. I think often we think that what we're asking for is obvious, and figuring out what that actually looks like in your mind to have it produce. So when you are asking, it becomes very clear. I don't know if any of you listened to anything from the Influence series. I think it's Joseph Brenny and their group. But when you're working on becoming clear, you want to look at two things on multiple levels. Those two things are motivation and ability, right? When you're thinking of a person on a personal level, is a problem a motivational problem or ability problem? Some people truly hate what you're asking them to do, right? They signed up for the job, and some jobs just have moments where, right, you have to do the thing that you hate doing. But some people just, right, do hate their job, but they have a skill set that you might be able to use in a different way. And so maybe it's shifting that employee into that other way, or seeing if there is a way to teach them or help them to love what they're doing. Sometimes shedding the light on why, right? I mean, I think of like housekeeping staff in a hospital, like without that safety measures, our patients would all become unsafe. But I don't know if it's ever presented that way to them. Maybe it is. But I think it's really important to know why you're producing something, even if you don't like it. So hopefully they become more passionate about it in the end. And then to my story, there's structural, right? So structural motivation and ability. We really had more of a structural problem than ability or motivation problem. We wanted to connect. We just didn't know how. And when we solved, or when our manager solved that structural problem and moved us around, it changed everything, right? We were able to produce what we wanted to as a company and as a team. So consistency. Consistency in your follow-up means that matters. It matters to you. If you don't follow up, then expectations were either met or you didn't even care enough to follow up. Maybe you weren't even aware things were being done, right? We get so busy that often we don't even think about things are done. I know I come in to the office sometimes and I'm like, did that get done? Luckily, right, it hits me at times, right? It does mean it's important to you when you follow up. Expectations, right? We have a lot of expectations for ourselves and our employees and the people we work with. But often when expectations are met, there's no appreciation, and unmet expectations cause any number of reactions to, right? Dismissal, oh, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's rage or anger. I want to give you an example of an unmet expectation. I'm going to bring it out of the workplace and into normal life. I call it my story of a clean house versus a clean kitchen. Maybe some of you are parents, maybe some of you are younger parents, but hopefully you can relate. Even if you don't have children, living with another human can cause this. You might recall asking your kids to have the house clean before you come home. You spent years now teaching them how to clean the house, right? That's how you clean the counter, vacuum the floor, clean the toilets. But you get home and even though you've taught all these things, your kitchen is a mess and all you want to do is create dinner. You're hungry, you're tired, and your house, right? The toilet's clean, floors vacuum, but your kitchen's a mess. So when I think of that, I think of like, I asked my kids to clean the house, but what I really needed was my kids to clean the kitchen, right? Might be your partner too, or your roommate. You think you could be happy with the house being clean, but instead now upset because what I could do or produce wouldn't happen. So following up, right? It wasn't really my kids' fault. Yes, it was, but not completely, right? They did the parts that they thought were important, but what mattered to me was the clean kitchen. So after that, I would ask, I really need the kitchen clean. And when you get to it, if you could get to these two other things, that would make me happy. So when you're thinking about what you want, just become clear. Clarity and thinking about what capacities you could have and what qualities or conditions that you could tolerate if these things were done for you. So I want you to just take a minute and just let me know that you're with me or if you have questions. And if Jordan can help with the chat, that would be awesome.
Hey, Nicole, I'm not seeing anything here right now. I just see a few thumbs up. I also I want to note that I am now sharing my screen with the slides. Let me know if you see them.
Oh, nice.
We're on the slide with the dirty kitchen right now, so feel free to
Yes,
let
we
me
are on the dirty kitchen.
So yeah, feel free to let me know to move on to the next slide. I'm happy to do so. It seems that folks are still here. They're giving thumbs up, so
Awesome.
show.
So next slide. So you should be seeing a dog with a little tick on somebody's finger. Does that sound right,
Yeah,
Jordan?
that's right.
So in the chat, if you want to kind of quick sum up maybe the most annoying thing your employee, partner, or human resource person has ever done, I'm sure they're longer stories and you can chat out, but maybe just a simple example would be awesome. I think of this picture as some problems are dog hairs, right? You can just brush them off. They probably don't matter. And then there's foxtails, right? They get in your dog's ears. Maybe you have to spend $400 at the vet getting them out. Not that that's a true story. Wouldn't know. And then some things are hookworms, right? They're serious problems that you need to deal with right away. In approaching that, really thinking about whether the problem is worth your time, energy, and effort should be part of your equation. So your ability to dream an expansive dream or contract into something smaller is affected by what your partners bring to the table. your partners in management, your partners in employees, your business partners. So if your partner is a yes person or a doormat, what you will get is a limited view. And positive resistance helps bring your ideas into fruition and makes the dream bigger. If your people are scared or unengaged, then nothing will be brought to the table, right? They just kind of look at you. When I started this business, I'm going to say Janelle, who's kind of my everything, and hopefully you have one of these people in your office for you. Right? She was brand new. I didn't know what I was doing. She didn't know what she was doing, but right, big ideas, big expectations. And one of the things that I really, really loved and appreciated about her, although sometimes it was annoying because it slowed me down, was that she would ask a lot of questions. And sometimes when they're asking a lot of questions, right, like she became more clear on what she was doing. So she didn't just like produce a result that I didn't want, but she also helped me become more clear in what I was asking for. And sometimes we would end up in a space of, well, I don't actually really need that. And that doesn't actually matter. But she always did it in such a way that it was just questions, right? It wasn't questioning what I was doing or trying to produce in a negative sense. It was just like, how do I, as your partner, become more clear about that? We're going to go to the mushrooms. Next one. Okay, this was humor. We often hallucinate as to why someone doesn't give us what we want or ask, and we make a story up about what they're doing or why they're not performing, right? And often we play out this talk in our mind of, well, if they say this, I'll say that, or, oh, this is how they always respond, which there's some truth in that, right? Like, but when we come at people or ask people things, often the first thing is resistance, right? And you can think of that resistance in a negative way, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just that we're used to defending ourselves, right? So most people, and hopefully the people on your team, are not trying to misbehave. They're wanting to do a good job, or maybe they're not clear on it. And so asking questions to resolve it. I hopefully you don't mind this story, Jordan, but in working with Edge to pull this presentation together for you all, it was such a great act of partnership, right? They asked me questions, they gave me ideas, we went back and forth in order to produce this for you. So if you can ask questions, multiple questions, and think of when you're asking those questions that no one's misbehaving. If you want to return to your employee with or partner with a specific situation and think of a couple of questions you might ask to get clarity, you can feel free to put that in the chat box as well. So next slide, Jordan. So the dance of partnership is really having positive resistance, having people respond out of fear or people pleasing. It certainly will get the job done, but you will have pretty predictably poor results. If you want someone to become accountable, it takes time for them to assess the vision and become clear to the mission. It's a dance where each partner is responsible for feedback to each other. And if you can think of it as feedback instead of defensiveness or questioning your ability, maybe it's about gaining clarity. One of my favorite books is called Thanks for the Feedback and Unoffendable. Um, and they really kind of walk you through coming up with some great questions. Um, what it looks like for me in feedback is I think this is going really well, and I could use a little bit more of this. And maybe I would add in this is something I really didn't want or need, and here's why. Um, or if you can bring some humor into it where, oh, I really didn't intend for it to go that direction. Maybe you can move on quickly and move on to a better situation. So we're to acknowledgement and appreciation. And many of us mix acknowledgement with appreciation. So partnership and collaboration is not only what we're being accountable for, but what we're being appreciated and acknowledged for. It really brings home what you want in the position. And if you can do it on small scales and large scales, all the better. Some things blow you out of the water, and some things are just nice, right? They make your day easier. So next slide, Jordan. Let's take a pencil, for example. Say someone gives you a pencil, and acknowledgement would really be, wow, I love the color of that pencil. You must have known it's my favorite. There's nothing better than a sharp pencil, right? That's acknowledgement. Appreciation, which would be next slide, Jordan, is all the things why it was done for you. I love this pencil. When I use this pencil to do such and such job, my life will be easier. And every time I'm going to think of you, right? Or in business, maybe it could be appreciation of what a person produced that has made your work life better or easier. I am so very thankful for my team. They make my life better and easier every day. Next slide, Jordan. So great asking is clarity, consistently following up, acknowledgement, and appreciation. When we can see each other's vision, we can negotiate the best parts and grow into a bigger vision. The beauty of having different ideas, which is sometimes goes against your idea, is that we have a more expansive view and we can conquer more and learn from each other. Oh, next slide. Sorry, Jordan, I don't know if you're on the next one. So our patients that we love are so much more unhealthy. I hope you're seeing this in your practice. Maybe you're not. I hope you're not. They're more inflamed, more unhealthy than ever before, right? We can add to the problem when we don't work in concert with other health professionals. My invitation to myself and to all of you here is to create partnerships with each other and with our clients to be the best part of healthcare. Right? We can help them become uninflamed. We can help them to have better health. It's our chance to be part of healing that our world needs so much. It begins with partnerships with our people that we work with and our patients. And it starts with you taking your one unrenewable resource, which is time, to join us for this course. My hope is that we can all be a part of the change. Don't know if you have questions or comments, or Jordan has some.
Yeah, Nicole, thank you so much for that. And everyone, again, we apologize for the technical difficulties that we had at the beginning of this webinar. We hope that you learned some valuable lessons through Nicole's talk today. I do have some questions from the chats, and I'm also monitoring the live stream. For those who are there, feel free to put your questions in there, and I'll ask those questions as well. One question here from Umair. What would be your advices, suggestions, and precautions to someone who wants to start in this business or the kind of business that you're in?
Um, I think one of the things that I did really well, and would highly recommend is starting slow, right? There's a lot of structural pieces that you have to have in place. So systems, right? Systems processes and having those down, then really was helpful in growing rapidly. It didn't take a ton of patience at the start. It could I have? Yes. But I think we probably would have driven away patience because our systems wouldn't have been in place. I needed to figure out um, computer systems and as well as billing and insurance and lots of different things. So slowing down to have systems in place would be my top recommendation. Um, and not biting off more than you can chew. I think the roller coaster of it all, in starting small can be intimidating, right? Because there's not a lot of funds coming in quickly. But when you have your systems in place and then you can take great care of people, it will grow.
That's awesome. Thank you, Nicole. Next question here. Are there any habits or cultural habits or unwritten rules that are holding your team back right now or that you see other teams being held back by?
Um, Cultural habits or unwritten rules holding us back. I think the only thing that's probably holding us back as as our group, as we just serve women, we have so many women who want to bring their partners in. So that's probably our biggest holdup. And right, being trained as a women's healthcare provider, I'm not really to be interpreting men's labs, so I don't. I think our next step will probably be to hire somebody who can do that. Just have to figure out the insurance and the processes in order to do that. I think, as far as like cultural things in our community, um, I think one of the things that's been a benefit is that I've been here and I'm pretty well known in the community. So I think I see a lot of people from different backgrounds. We try and do little things that make people feel welcome when they come in the door. I don't know if you can see it, but my office does not look really medical. If you were to come in the front part of our office, it's just warm and inviting, pretty neutral. There's couches and chairs to hang out with, and yeah.
Awesome. You mentioned earlier that, folks should be sharing appreciation for their teammates, right? And a lot of that is, celebrating wins with your teammates. Can you share a time where you truly celebrated a win and like kind of what happened after and what was the result of that?
Mm, I can't remember. um, we've had so many wins, but I can think of like moments where my heart just exploded and I was just so excited. Um, but I can't remember the exact story of it all. Um, One of my most recents was probably a patient win. I had a client who it was like her maybe 67th birthday. We had worked for a year where her health kind of really continued to deteriorate, certainly didn't change or get better. And so we're at this kind of turning point in her health. I'm like, we have to do something different. We've tried all these things. I think we need to consider medicine, or we tried this other program and see how it goes with you. And she was totally paralyzed at that moment and like almost couldn't respond. She's like, 67, I feel like I'm dying, in a sense of not living the life of her dreams. And anyway, I told her, I'll just call you in 2 weeks. I'll call you in 2 weeks. We'll check in and, you can make a decision. And so she did. Um, she decided to go down this whole program that we do for about a month. And her cholesterol like totally cut in half. Her hemoglobin A1C went from 6.3 to 5.7. So I was pretty stoked, and I feel like our team, the nurse practitioner I worked with, like we're on the same path of helping people with their health and the incredible things that we can do. And without our whole team, it wouldn't happen. And certainly our patients making those choices for themselves as well.
Great. I guess a follow-up question to this too, just from the live stream here. You're talking about, this person in this recent story. How do you currently check in on your team's like emotional well-being? Are there processes in place that you have, or are there ways that you see other practices do this?
Um, in our current practice, I definitely know when different team members are coming in, it's going to take me more time in my day. And it's not just me going and doing my work, but my work includes making sure my team is good and they want to know I care. And so, and they care about me. Right. So asking them about their lives. Right. We usually spend a few minutes at the start of the day just kind of checking in with each other. Certainly on a larger scale, right? You can't visit 20 employees in the morning and check and see how they're doing. But at the same time, you could have a little bit of sort of rotation, right? And keeping in mind what's important to them and making sure you're asking something that they know they told you about their family and their life that you can come back and care about, because we care about our people. I think lets them know that you care. So that's how I do it. I think in when I was at the women's clinic, different providers probably had different styles, but that was the one that resonated the most with me. And I wouldn't see some of those people who checked in on me for maybe a month at a time. But when they did, they always remembered something about me that they asked about. And I would say, like right now, I work with a remote group for our charting system. And right, there's things that go wrong in charting systems and things that can be improved. And there's definitely people on that team when I'm talking with them, like right, even though they're remote, I remember things about their lives and things that they told me. I think in remote work, you can get really sidetracked into like, well, they're just out there performing a job, but people perform a job so much better when they know you care and care about them.
And here's a question from the Q&A section here. Um, what communication practices have the greatest impact on staff engagement?
What communication practices? I think really taking time to listen, probably more than anything. I mean, questions, taking time to listen. I'm not a communication expert. I do think things go well in our office. I think the learning from the big blowout was to not assume people knew what was happening, right? And asking questions, and then asking questions in an unassuming way. I can have the ability to bring a lot of tension to something, right? You know when somebody has tension when you walk in the room, you know something's wrong. So trying to figure out how not to be housing this like sort of tension, I think becomes really important.
Awesome. And one more question here. How do you maintain a strong culture when part of your team, like the admin or billing support, is remote or outsourced?
Um, well, hopefully within that team, when they're remote or outsource, right, you have your contact person, and they might have a team behind them, but you have your go-to person. That's what happens with the groups I've worked with, and it's just staying in connection, checking in with each other. I would say we do it quarterly, whether I have something going on or not. Right, there's always things that can be a little bit improved upon. I think asking, I'm going to bring it to Janelle for a minute in the office. Right? She's watching things happen. Your outsourced people are watching things happen that you don't even know are happening and don't even know need to be improved upon unless you're sharing that communication.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. Let me go ahead and turn my camera back on here too. Um, Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today in this talk about collaboration and partnership, and giving appreciation to your teammates. Nicole, you've been so great in joining us today and presenting this information. Everyone, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Feel free to message me too. I am tagged in the event page on LinkedIn. I'm happy to relay those questions over to Nicole. Um, and Nicole, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you, Jordan and Fatma and Edge. I hope for great things for all of us.
Likewise. And that's it, everyone. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.